If you're one of those collectors that believes that the main ingredient in a COVID vaccine is Todd McFarlane's sweat, if you genuinely believe that McFarlane's pee is used for like energy drinks, if you basically believe that oxygen tanks are nothing more than like McFarlane's farts encapsulated into a container, well, today's video might be a little bit difficult to swallow because we are definitely going to go hard here at the Toddster himself. I've said this before, but I'll say it one more time. I can definitely be his biggest fan, but also his biggest critic. I'm not somebody that's sold out. I do not have an allegiance to any one particular OM. I personally just buy what I like, anything that is appealing to me, anything that I believe that I will have fun posing and playing around with. That's usually what I pick up. And I know it's really cool and edgy and trendy to go at McFarlane right now because, well, that's just popular opinion. I can't tell you how many videos I've watched up to this point of people just going, McFarlane has lost his damn mind. People are just going with like the most cliche attacks at him. And look, I'll be brutally honest, I'm trying to look at this from different perspectives, different angles, and it's really difficult to excuse what the Toddster is doing at this point. I did hear some theories about potentially this being a wave that no other retailer wanted to pick up, and so McFarlane had the entire responsibility of having to buy these figures and then ship them out and handle the entire process, which I'm sure McFarlane is ill-equipped to be able to handle something like that. Usually McFarlane has like minor repaints here and there that become store exclusives, or he does have most of these figures available on his website, but I'm sure his stock is incredibly limited. And if, let's say, he went to multiple retailers and nobody wanted these, because obviously these companies are taking on quite a bit of responsibility. They have to buy maybe thousands, just pallets worth of these figures. And maybe if at some point no retailer wanted and McFarlane had to carry that responsibility, it was a little bit too much for him. I don't know what happened. Somewhere along the ways, it was just too expensive for him, and then he had to upcharge these figures all the way up to $40. By the way, there's nothing special about these figures either. They all come with exactly what you would expect from a McFarlane action figure. Some of them come, I believe like the Superman comes with extra hands, and that's it. And then the rest of the wave, I believe, comes with no extra accessories, just the Build-A-Figure pieces. That's it. So like I said, there's nothing really that unique about this wave. The theory is that just absolutely no retailer wanted to jump in on these because they were not movie related. And maybe it's just because it's somewhat of an obscure wave. And this is coming from somebody that is very familiar with the whole Crisis storyline. But there are a lot of newer kids or a lot of newer collectors who probably were not around back then or just don't read comic books in general. So it's very difficult for them to be that excited for this wave. So I'm, like I said, this is just me throwing out some theories. I'm not trying to excuse the guy. I'm just trying to understand what exactly went wrong. So that's the theory that I'm personally leaning hard on. I just feel that the entire cost of manufacturing these and, you know, putting them out to retail fell on his shoulders, which, like I said, I don't think that's usually something that he does. His website is very small. I think for the most part, he does have very limited availabilities in a warehouse somewhere and he ships them from there. But for the most part, I think a large percentage of the responsibility of shipping these out or handling these and getting them to the customers is usually handled by a big, large entity, whether that's Walmart or Target or Amazon. I believe these different retailers just have different capabilities, or I should say a farther reach than McFarlane. And because all of that fell on him, maybe he just had to at least break even somewhere, and unfortunately the customer ended up paying for that. Like I said, I'm not excusing the guy. I'm just trying to understand exactly what went wrong. And if that was the case, I think he could have probably just went public and explained the situation, but then you wouldn't have all of this wonderful content. Now, obviously, the other working theory, and it's one that most people tend to gravitate towards, is just the fact that maybe McFarlane was reaching a little bit. He was just trying to throw out different price points, seeing if he could potentially sell at least a few figures with that price tag in mind, and then eventually just slowly start to decrease the prices on all of these figures. Now, again, that's just a theory that people have thrown out there, and it wouldn't be the first time that an OM has done something similar to this. We did have Hasbro do something like this, and it was a line that probably nobody remembers. Nobody was really paying attention to it, but they did do something like this with the starting lineup NBA figures that they released. I want to say like about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It was a phenomenal release for people that collect action figures and are huge sports fans. But as a whole, this was an absolute mess. It was very chaotic. They decided to do the plastic-free packaging on a very collector-friendly line for some unknown reason. And then on top of that, the original price point for these was $50. They sold quite a few of these at the $50 price point, and then eventually decided to bring them down all the way down to $30. It was an absolute insult to all the people that had originally purchased them at the $50 price point, which, by the way, I wasn't one of them. I waited until they dropped to $30, but it was just an absolute joke and a slap across the face to collectors, because, as I mentioned, a lot of the diehards had already jumped in on the line at that $50 price point, only to see other collectors jump in and just spend $30. And I think eventually, for people that have now been collecting or have been paying attention to the line, we've been seeing them at like Marshall's or Ross for a fifth of what they were originally going to go for, anywhere from like $7 to $12. But maybe this is what McFarlane was doing. This is a theory that I personally do not really believe in, just because up to this point he's had a phenomenal track record when all of these OMs were starting to raise their prices. This was one of the few manufacturers that held out as long as they possibly could. I remember Hasbro was like on their third price hike, and McFarlane was still selling his figures for about $20. I just choose to believe that McFarlane has at least a smidge or at least one moral fiber left in him. I just choose not to believe that. Now, again, I could be wrong, but seeing how all these other OMs have operated since before the pandemic, and seeing how McFarlane was able to carry out his business, I just don't think they correlate with each other very well. They just seem to be, they seem to have different objectives, different principles. So I choose to believe that it's the first theory, where maybe he just took on the responsibility and, you know, it kind of backfired in the end. It's actually worth noting that at the moment of this recording, I believe at least one of the figures was sold out, and I believe within the next couple of days another figure might have sold out. So half of the wave looks like it's going to sell out, and that's going to be, like I said, kind of a shock to me personally, that people are still willing to pay $40 for these figures. But it also speaks volume to the fan base, and I think how they tend to trust McFarlane. And you know, a lot of people seem to believe that this isn't going to be a move that is consistent going forward. I think this, like I said, this might just be a wave that just gave him too many issues, and he had to, you know, raise the prices. That way he wouldn't take a loss on it. I just don't feel like this is going to be a consistent thing. I don't think the $40 price point is going to stick around, and not because people are up in arms and, you know, causing mayhem. I just feel like it was just, like I said, a wave that just nobody wanted in the retail business. It's also worth noting that his collector's edition line is going for $30 right now. This is just a regular $25 release for a Build-A-Figure wave. So I just really don't think that price point is going to stick around, especially considering the collector's edition line usually includes a few more things. It has like a card stand, and then from time to time we get brand new body molds along with new head sculpts. And then sometimes they'll throw in some really good accessories that we haven't seen before. So, but I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Like I said, I've said this probably like 3 or 4 times during the video. I'm not defending the guy. I'm just trying to understand why it is that things went down the way that they did. Regardless, I'm not picking up any of these figures, but I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Are you guys picking up any of these? Do you guys support McFarlane? Will you continue to buy McFarlane figures, or is this kind of like the last straw for you? Let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.